Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I'm your host on this channel of role playing games as we talk all things role playing games. And you guys, all of you guys are, well, the co hosts on this channel. So, of course, streaming to live to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and actually our Discord server a bit. You can participate in the show live as we talk about things. Now, this week, we're getting into some dicey waters, which I frankly don't feel the same way about that. But we're going to talk about gender roles and tropes and gender fluidity in our tabletop role playing games. And today is Trope Tuesday. Yesterday was Monster Monday. We're going to talk about this all week long, and in a way, we're going to not only figure out ways that we can improve our games if you happen to fall into those categories. I myself being a cis straight male who hopefully is an ally and doesn't know much. So all of you out there are going to educate me. And then, of course, we're just going to use our stories, all that kind of business to essentially just make our games better. And you know, any of you who know me know that 5 days a week for about an hour we just talk all things gaming. Essentially, it's we're just brainstorming. And for me as a creative, there is no limit to where an idea can come from. Even if it's an idea like, ooh, better not do that in my games, still there's always something to spark an idea. And yes, I do know that it's like, there's Pride Month, and there's there's a controversy within the tabletop RPG community about diversity, and some people are like, I'm tired of hearing it, and others are like, I don't understand why we have to. But let me just point out some uh, incongruity when it comes to people who are emotionally aggressive about their defense of the tabletop role playing games and not allowing air quotes those people into it. I'll say that it doesn't make sense to me that anyone would be that upset about what other people do with their own genitalia, their own orifices, as it were. If you are a huge proponent of freedom and free expression, why would you even spend two brain cells worrying about what other people do with their own bodies and their own time and energy? Last, the next thing I would say is a step above that is like, why would you even waste energy on hating on what someone else does in their own imaginations? It would almost be like being discriminatory against someone who has dreams that you don't have. Literally, there is it costs me $0 and zero energy to allow other people to experience the game that I love in the manner in which they do it. And so, if that means that there might be some air quotes discomfort written into the game when it comes to art expressions, or whether there's a paragraph or two that rubs me the wrong way, and I'm saying this in general because I want to point the finger at me than anybody else, that my discomfort means zero to other people's freedom of expression. And guess what? I frankly, this world has me. I don't need other people like me in it. I'd rather have other voices and hear stories from their point of view. So let's get into Trope Tuesday. Now, Trope Tuesday, unfortunately, means that we will go down the idea of stereotypes and of course, it being Trope Tuesday, we're going to talk about the problematic imagery maybe that's in some of our intellectual properties, and that maybe we can do what we're going to do is we're going to flip the script on some of them and figure out like uh, a very common one is the gay best friend, right? Like maybe we can kind of figure out how we can maybe use those tropes, and then of course flip the script on those tropes, basically include them and then go, guess what, it's not really what you think it is. All right, so let's get into the show about this Trope Tuesday. I have been warned. I have been warned by you guys who are very positive and intelligent and brilliant, that even doing a series like this itself could bring some heat or whatever. I don't really care. The world's big, and small minds can go somewhere else. So thank you very much for warning me. I'm well aware. This might be the real time that the individuals who I volunteered to be moderators might be like, DBJ, don't do this. Uh, yeah. Oh no, you're fine there. Z. Okay, so I do have up. I tried. I kind of went down a rabbit hole of one of the favorite websites that has been given to me by Tesla Ranger, and that is tvtropes.org. And tvtropes.org, of course, there's a billion tropes on there. And again, you could get lost down the TV tropes rabbit hole. But I tried to find something that we could really, in general, talk about, and unfortunately, there's too many tropes. So we're going to bring them up off. I'll bring some up off the top of my head, and then you guys can come up with some as well, and we'll go from there. Because honestly, when I went down that rabbit hole, I was like, that's like a 12-hour show if we go through every single one of them. All right. So Z says, I will say I agree with you on having to get over our lack of comfort. As a GM, I have to play everyone. Yep. Gay, straight, closeted, racist, evil, good, perfect, etc. Yeah, you know what? I we don't often that's I thought about doing a week series on the I guess you say the unspoken things in gaming that we've taken so much for granted that we don't even have a definition for it. But we haven't discussed, and maybe we'll do this right now, and then we'll do this, of course, later on in moving forward. Is maybe there's a little discomfort by game masters and dungeon masters on properly portraying, or a discomfort in portraying characters that are very different from ourselves. I've had people reach out to me that were like a little uncomfortable, like, "Hey, listen, I'm a pasty white dude. I don't know about portraying like this, the older black gentleman that lives down the street or something like that." And my first reaction is the fact that you even thought about the the fact that you thought about the fact that you might be uncomfortable is a huge step for doing it the right way in the first place, right? Like acknowledging a problem. We all know acknowledging the problem is like is the biggest step, and then after that is just incremental steps to quote unquote doing it right, which there is no right way. It's just trying to do it offensively. But we don't really talk about. We love to talk about players, like my player character is this and my player character is that. We don't talk about the comfort of the dungeon master in terms of having to balance like 38 NPCs and encounters and a diverse group of people who all have their own personalities and backgrounds and sexualities and races and things of that nature. So that you make a good point there, Z. I'm gonna leave this up because maybe that's something that we need to talk about in terms of spreading the gaming experience, because we have lots of players and not enough dungeon masters, and maybe dungeon masters are a little bit like, look, I'm from the deep south. I've got an accent. That's all I know. I don't know how to make my game feel um, get more verisimilitude when my players travel from one place to another, that where the people are nothing like what I've grown up with. But that's where creativity comes from, right? That's we all we also don't know what green faced aliens look like from Mars as well, but we do that anyway. So sure, I think it's maybe it's more difficult to play people that are one step away from us rather than 12 steps away from us. That may also be a thing as well. Anyway, again, good to have you. Mike says, since my table is a mix of ages, cultures, and genders, there's zero issue with incorporating the same into the game. Exactly. And you know, the more diverse our gaming table is, the easier it is for, especially if you've got very open-minded, positive people at your table. All somebody has to do is raise their hand and go, "Hey, listen, maybe you might want to do it this way instead of that way." And if we move away from failure into experience and education, And you're like, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. Like for example, what's I find really strange is most of us are online anyway. We don't know who we're talking to or exposing ourselves to in the world, and yet people are surprised when people respond back to them with experiences and of saying, "Hey, I'm nothing like you. Do you realize you're speaking to individuals that have more experience or more knowledge or about what you're talking about?" Like I'm letting people know that I don't know what I'm talking about in many ways, and I can always learn. I'm an old dude. I can always learn more. Mike goes on to continue. Hell, I'm the light skinned hetero DM trope, but there's zero issue with the world not being me. Exactly. The world's got enough of us. Most of us are singular entities, we would hope, and I'm not narcissistic enough to think that everybody needs to think and look and act and portray themselves like me. Now, I do understand there's. I can't speak on the religious aspect of that. That's that would have to be something for another day and another streaming service when it comes to politics and religion and things of that nature. I can't tell you how to handle that, but I will say that I think love trumps 99.9% of all of that. So whatever. All right, so let's get into some tropes because we have to talk about it. Is Trope Tuesday, so we have to look it up. Oh yeah, Corlon. Yeah, we brought that up yesterday. Mike says, look up the lore of Corlon Lotharian. I don't know how to spell it either. The chief elf god. He switches gender at will. As a matter of fact, remember the very short time controversy about the fact that fifth edition has said that elves can be gender fluid, and of course, narratively, players can choose whether their elf does switch genders and at what periods of time and how often. And yeah, the original elf from AD&D, when they finally came out with the deities and demigods and explained the origin of Corlon Lotharian, who's chaotic. I think chaotic good, chaotic nature is like just switches gender and actually bodily shape all the time. Thank you, Tesla. Puts in the correct spelling. Corlon Lotharian, and there's a the dungeon cast the Dungeon Cast, one of many content creators out there. I'll put a plug out for those guys. They do a deep dive into a lot of the gods, and they did a Corlon Lotharian and the expanded racial gods. Because there's a god of the dwarves and gods of the dwarves, elves, orcs, gnomes, etc., and how um, strange and intermingled, and how there's like there's gaps in the lore, and there's been rewritten lore that makes it seem like one person's a villain then the hero, and I love all that. Yeah, T Tesla. So uh, one aspect of a trope is of course the gay best friend. Now I will say that in many stories talking about the gay best friend, the best friend has switched from one to has moved on. There's like levels of best friendishness that has happened in a lot of intellectual properties. I remember there used to be the black best friend. Who in horror movies usually got killed first, in action movies usually got captured, and that best friend has moved has been shifted around. Every once in a while, you'll get a gap of the snarky and or comedic best friend, and then it'll switch to whatever is the new hotness. Whether the black best friend has moved on to the brown best friend, so you get someone who is the like again the new hotness, depending on which ethnic group is now the U.S. has decided should bump up a little bit of a notch. Like for example, in our modern context, usually there's the Asian best friend, but the gay best friend has stuck around for a long time, and usually it's the gay it's gay plus something. So they're like gay plus, and then I'll either have like they're either very overly flamboyant, or they own or run a business that happens to be gay centric for some reason, and I just roll my eyes like, oh, here we go again with this. They're usually very funny or snarky or something like that. It tends to be, or they have a very active social life that our main character may not have, or something. That's a very common trope. And while more recently, these are morely uh, more fully developed characters. A lot of times they're just they're basically like they're very cardboard. Mike Gould says I incorporated that into the Feywild. Any species with Fey ancestry can change their physical sex once per day in the Feywild. This, of course, may not correlate with their gender. I as long as here's a weird thing in role playing games. Narratively, my answer to 99% of all things narratively is yes. If it doesn't have any mechanical parts to it, I could care less. Can my character change sex? Of course. Why are you asking me? Tell me how you want your character to be portrayed, and the answer is yeah. I don't understand that at all. Sorry, getting to you guys are getting you co-hosts are getting ahead of me. Vampanoise mentions don't know what gender to make a PC, just make a Warforged. They're all binary. Boom, boom. I get it. Yeah. Warforged. Well, you could make the case that a Warforged may not know or doesn't have a concept of what male or female really is until coming into contact with a society that actually decides that. Uh, Tesla says, quote, a group of best friends become true companions, TV tropes. Yeah, all the best friends get together and then they themselves become a thing. Yeah. Z says, I'd love to point out that lizard folk in my game fit the ambiguous gender trope. Yep. Yeah, and sorry to stop your comment, but we know in nature there are I believe there's frogs and lizards that are have ambiguous gender, that in nature they switch gender based on the circumstance of their environment. But anyway, okay. So uh have I love to point out that lizard folk in my game fit the ambiguous gender trope. Heavy. And then there are kobolds, male, and dragons, female, who fit the bizarre sexual dysmorphism uh, per- perception. But if my players take things at face value, they will think it's an all one gender trope. Yeah, yeah. You guys are pointing out the using the official TV tropes thing. Yeah, where because this happens in like Star Trek, like the Star Trek crew will arrive on a planet, and if they meet all females or all males, it's like all one gender trope. But which to tell a very quick story, they do have to do that. But it is funny how it's I brought up yesterday the astronaut problem. You go to a planet and you meet all females, and you're like, oh, well, I guess everyone here is female. And like, no, just all the people you just met are females because maybe they've been chosen to be like the first contact people, or you've landed somewhere where that is the case, or something like that. Mm-mm-mm. Lord of the Let's see. Vampire says Lord of the Rings didn't want to fall into typical tropes. That's why in the Fellowship there is no there is no Tolkien black guy. Dad jokes. Oof. Dad RPG jokes. Yeah. But boom. Thank you very much for that one. Yes. Oh man. Yeah. I mean, I suppose you could take Lord of the Rings as an example. Like there are some people who are very strangely protective of like Lord of the Rings. Like there's no black people in Lord of the Rings. That means there shouldn't be any. Because there's going to be a Lord of the Rings television show, and it's the astronaut problem. Maybe the fact that there aren't any black people is because you've never met them. Right? Did our heroes actually visit everybody in the world? Or did you just see some of the artwork done over the years and you were like, yep, all the artwork's done by Caucasians with Caucasians in them. So I guess that's the true nature. It was so weird. It's so funny. Mike says, note the fact that a succubus is also an incubus at will. They're just not shape changers. Um, just not shape changers. Now, we again, like I saw this on a Twitter feed or something about how there are a lot of. Yesterday we talked about Monster Monday. In there are gender coded monsters, sirens, harpies, Medusa, succubus that are female coded. Although to be honest with you, on the other end, what something we really often don't talk about are the male coded monsters either. Now, unfortunately, female coded tropes tend to involve um, the subversion and torturous nature of men in power over women trope, meaning like there's a lot of coding to place women and gay individuals into like a lesser stature with the men above them. But the on the other end of that is that the men tend to be the ones that are like killed first, brutally murdered first. They're more or less coded into the violent aspect of not just gaming, but even in fantasy and science fiction. And oftentimes, despite the fact that nonviolence by guys is a thing that we've seen before, for some reason it always fades to the wayside. Like for example, Star Wars, Star Wars, as much violence as in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker won at the end by not wanting to strike down Darth Vader. Right? It was a lot of violence and and anger and lightsabers flashing, and then at the very end was just like, you know what, Dad, there's something good in you. I'm not going to hurt you. And as cool as that is, we we dudes tend to not embrace that part of the trope, right? It's like, well, why wasn't Luke Skywalker a badass in the next movie? And it's like, well, maybe the movies were terrible. Maybe that's the issue. But we often tend to, because like in comic books and in a lot of stories, the females or tend to be put into the caretaker role. They sit in the back. They tend to be the non-violent badasses. They are the protectors. They're the ones with the mind control or the mind reading or the healing power or something like that. And that's been very, very common. And unfortunately, while there are uh, while we do see, especially in anime, I think anime has done this a lot, and there's even some video games that have broken through, tried to flip the script on that. Unfortunately, there are some things that are left over. There that are left over from those tropes, because there's the idea of the one exception idea, where everybody is considered. For example, let's go with like women, right? Young girls and women are the weaker, individuals, except for the one exceptional individual. And it's like, well, maybe there should be more than one. Mike says, yeah, sorry I missed yesterday. Would have brought up how goblinoids gender code. The exception among them is hobgoblins. Yeah, yeah, goblinoids do gender code, don't they? Yeah, yeah. The guys go out fighting. The ladies sit back, pregnant and barefoot, literally, or at least that's the trope. Especially if you read, what's the first module? Keep on the Borderlands. I was about to say Caves of Chaos. Is Keep on the Borderlands. Mophacall, what's going on there? It says Darth Vader, there's something good in you. We don't have to fight. Every alien at Jabba's palace and all the stormtroopers. Oh. we never saw that part of them. Yeah. Yeah, they were just like, we got to see the nice side of Darth Vader up close and personal. Yeah, movie. I hear you. I hear you. I am very wrong with that that aspect of Darth Vader. Well, listen, it was Luke that did say that. It was anybody else that said that. He's like Darth was like, "F you, dude." strike you down where you stand. Now, there are someone in I got some comments, and I want to make a comment about this. There were some comments made in for YouTube, and one of the comments was someone says I'm not going to make names because of this, because I didn't ask them whether they wanted their name out there. Says I would actually prefer it if they would put back in gendered stat modifiers for all the playable races. It makes infinitely more sense. I'm I'm going to respond to that with like, honestly, that makes, I have to be completely opposite of that. I think that makes zero sense to have gender specified stat mods. And here's why. Um, First of all, it doesn't add anything. And what I mean by that is you go to make your player character, and much like limitations on which character classes you could be, what level you could be, what gaming statistics you could have, when you start any game out with a oh, by the way, here are your limitations, here are your modifiers, and here's some negatives, you're automatically starting behind the eight ball. You're like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. Why does my character get a minus for doing this thing? That's why, a bunch of dudes got rid of that stuff in the first place. So you start the game out with a negative feeling. Second of all, narratively, you can do whatever you want. You don't need stats to, if your players visit a village and all the dudes are up front and all the ladies are weaker, if that's what you want, you just narratively say that. You don't need a stat mods to do that, to reinforce that. And lastly, I'll say that it's a little bit masturbatory as well. Like, do we really need, if your character's Billy Badass, do you need stats that help to reinforce that your character somehow is stronger than the weakly females that are out there in the rest of the world? Like, is there a problem? You're 14 strength, a rogue. Like, are you afraid that there might be some other 14 strength females out there? Like, that makes zero sense to me, at all. We don't need stat mods. Just narratively make the world the way you want, and then let players put the stats in the way they want them, and then keep moving on. We don't have to go down that childish, dumbass, like, girls are weaker than guys. It's like, oh my god, that literally is not the case. That is literally not the case. Um, Deadman, Corlon Lotharian in the Dungeons and Dragons role playing game. Corlon Lotharian is the leader of the Elven Pantheon and the god of magic, music, arts, crafts, poetry, and warfare. Corlon is also considered a member of the default D&D Pantheon. Corlon is the creator and preserver of the Elven race and governs those things held in the highest esteem among elves. I do remember Tesla puts in the Outcast episode, Memory Alpha. Isn't, if I'm not mistaken, I believe there was a Star Trek episode with a third gender um in a race. It might have been, it wasn't Deep Space Nine. I can't remember. There was an episode with a third gender. Hey, Kylie. And I don't remember the how it turned out. I think they committed suicide or something like that. It was pretty nasty. The Orville's a good example as well. I hope the Orville comes back. It's been too long though, but the Orville has gender coding in it, and it was the Next Generation. Thank you, Dead Man. It was the Next Generation. Thank you. With the episode with where there were male, female, and then there was a third gender, and the third gender was exposed to the crew, and then they started getting their own mindset, and they started questioning their culture. And I believe the character committed suicide at the very end, because they couldn't fit back or into their own society, and decided to commit suicide rather than conform back into their old society. Zamoris is a controversy. I loved how Goblin Slayer handled goblins. There are no female goblins, and they are all hard coded evil because of their natural needs. Still a harmful trope, but now understandable. I Is it in Warhammer 40K that like the orcs or something are born from plants, which would kind of change gender coding? Although plants do have male female ish male female ish coding inside of them as well. Um, Michael says there's no need to codify ability maximums because of sex. Like you said, if it adds nothing, then it does nothing. It's a relic of the Gygaxian past. Exactly. If and to argue, all right, the argument would be. I'm going to call small minds out there. The argument would be, well, a how is it that a female character, I'm just whatever, would have an 18 strength like my fighter has an 18 strength? And the answer to that is because they do. Right? It's called fantasy. And even in excuse me, if you haven't YouTubed or Googled uh, the top female athletes in the world, weightlifting and bodybuilding and all that kind of stuff, you haven't seen anything. I think you're just. I think there's this weirdism of like, uh, well, a frail little waif of a female can't be that strong. Well, who says they got to be frail and waif like? I don't think you've seen. I don't think you've seen these individuals out there, and of course, they it's like it's trying to prove a point by proving the point of already setting up the expectations itself. Like, well, a woman of the same size and weight won't be the same. I'm like, well, who's? But you're saying that nobody has to say that a female character in a group who's like shot putting and hammer throwing has to be sexy and curvy like in your favorite video game. Nobody said that. Yeah, like Kylie Poe says, Xena and Red Sonja had 18, 19 strength. Oh hell yeah. Oh hell yeah. And if sexiness has to be part of your if you want that to be part of your exceptionalism for your character, uh, uh, Xena, what is her name? The actress that plays Xena. Anyway, yeah, that has the even in her quote unquote Lucy Lawless. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, even in her old age. Yeah, you're like, sorry, that's a little sexist of me, but whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Tesla says no. That's the outcast. Only one gender. Oh, okay, okay. One thought of herself as female, and at the end of the episode was reprogrammed to be genderless. Different episode. Yes, yes, yes. One was. I'm mixing. I'm conflating episodes. Is what I was doing. That the person was genderless, and anyway, yeah, yeah. I'm conflating the two. Sorry. Mm-mm. Caius, what's going on there? Caius is like, I've seen a real life woman carrying a piano by herself. Oh yes, oh yes, absolutely. It's pretty ridiculous. I think completely ridiculous. Mm-mm-mm. Oh man, Tesla says the only media with a third gender I can think of is Alien Nation. Yeah, Alien Nation has a third gender. They're in um, native. I have a role playing game called Edregor based on American Native peoples, Indigenous peoples, Native Americans, and in Native American culture, they have a third gender, which I suppose today could kind of be coded like gender fluid, and even in overseas, especially away here from the United States, there are like gender fluid bathrooms and things like that. So yeah, yeah, comeliness didn't last very long there, Kylie. The extraneous stat, yeah, yeah. Well, to be honest, we are playing role playing games, so we want to be our best, right? We want to be the epitome of our best, and I find that um, I've only really seen this more or less in anime where a gender fluid character is seen as the protagonist, as a badass. I remember there was Robotech. I believe it was the what's the Veritex with the motorcycles, where the motorcycles like shift around the person and the two wheels are on the back end, and they have the jump jets and whatnot. And there was a character named Yellow Dancer, and who was a male character that was a um, he I don't know if they ever talked about his sexuality, but he was a cross dresser. So he would dance, dress female. He was a dancer. He would go to the bars with the other military types and would hear different conversations, but was also like a rebel fighter. So at the end, so when off stage, he was like this badass, like um, motorcycle rider with the shape, the Veritech motorcycles that would shape around the body, and he'd be shooting out missiles and machine guns and things like that. And I believe there was this is more common than a little bit in anime, but there was another one. Oh, cyberpunk criminals were on these missions, and they had these things around their necks that they would put in a mission, and the thing they would have to solve it in like 24 hours or whatever, and it would explode. And there was another character that was gender fluid who was a badass and whatnot. You see a lot of that more, I believe, in anime than in American television shows and media and things of that nature. But great characters. So someone says two spirits. Kylie brings up two spirits. Is that it? Okay, let me go. Sorry, go on to the co-hosts are having discussions, and like Vampanoy mentions, different standards of beauty with different cultures too. Absolutely. Whether it comes to like, I'll bring this up so you guys don't have to. Um, Lip plates in Africa are in lip plates, body scarification, neck extensions with the rings and things of that nature. The one that just because I'm a body horror person and I'm Americanized, the lip plate thing kind of, everything else no reaction at all, but the lip plate part, just it makes my body tingle. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the show, my discomfort means jack shit to other people. So don't make my comment about and going like, ooh, mean that I think people should stop doing it or that it's wrong. Hell no. I'm in the wrong, but I'm going to be honest. So yeah, the lip plate thing about cultural beauty norms and things like that. I think that'd be a great thing to do in when players visit like one culture and move to a next one that are about the idea of beauty standards and what's normal. I mean, for like I brought up before, like in there was a period of time in Europe where men wearing makeup and pantyhose and things and wigs was a thing. That's I think. Well, wig wearing is that still done in courts in Europe? I don't in like. Britain or something. I think it still is. Maybe. Mike says Two Spirit is the indigenous gender fluid mentioned. Okay, I didn't. I couldn't remember what it was related to. I mean, what the name of it was. It's Two Spirits. Yeah, Two Spirits is the gender fluid position. Um, uh, indigenous spirit, and then also in world, for example, like we talked about Dune yesterday about how the Bene Gesserit are all female. Maybe there's a knighthood where they're all coded male. Why not have like sorcerers are all some form of gender fluidity, or we heck how many, what's the movie Caligula or something, like there might even be um there might even be like a uh, the rich the rich debauchery of the nobles are like, we don't have any, we don't even look at gender and sexuality and things. We don't even have any hard and fast rules about a thing. Like we're just into it and stuff. Although I suppose if you do that, you're also saying that being gender fluid means you are decadent, but whatever. Thank you much there, Lone Wolf. Lone Wolf says, "Hey DBJ, can confirm judges still wear various wigs in courts in the UK." I I did not know that. I know I've seen it, but I'm in the States, so we get a lot of like stereotypical information. But yeah, it's a thing. Why not? Mike even confirms, yes, wigs are still worn in UK courts. The idea is that your gender disappears behind the robe. You're not any perceived gender. You're a lawyer or solicitor. And what just that piece of information, what a great way to have a reasoning for why there would be um, uh, the removal, a perfect reason for the removal of gender completely from a particular uh, faction or a job function or something. I could imagine a wizard's cabal. It's just like your gender's holding you back from opening your mind. You're going to be distracted by your own gender, as such as people, and it might be the disappearance of gender completely, or becoming like intersexed, or again like being a shape changer where your gender fluidity is based solely on whim or um, or study rather than based on nature. Like, hey, if you want to know what it's like to be this other person, your mind and body has to conform to learn these greater magics or something. And maybe there are people who are walking around, whether born male or female, they are like proctors or guardians or oracles or something and such. So what a great way to explain why something is the way it is. Sorry, I'm going to get to two comments here by our co-hosts Kylie and Deadman. Deadman says there's also a Pacific Islander tribe that sees the big belly men as a sign of attractiveness. Yep, yep, yeah, yeah. Heck, today we don't even think about it. Tattoos, signs of beauty and not beauty and stuff. Yeah, yep. It sees the big belly. Being big and rotund for men and women was seen as an attractive thing because it was a sign of wealth because you had lots of food and resources, and you could feed those babies, whatnot. So yeah, Kylie. Okay, all right. Kylie says, "Trust me, some trans people won't shut up about two spirits. It's cool, but I think it belongs to a culture I don't personally know." Yeah, well, we listen, myself included. We all like to appropriate things that make us the hero in our own lives. Whether whether that is good or not is remains to be seen over time. But yeah, yeah. Mm-mm. Mike says, I have a good friend who practices law in Canada. We do everything similar, save the wigs. Yeah, but even the idea of like the court robes are very like they literally drape over the body so you don't see their shape. They are almost universally black, so that you don't even get an idea of their of how much money they make, what their status is, or something. Yeah, a cleric organization of clerics belonging to a particular religion in which our bodily form is considered very, very minor, almost insignificant to achieving a level in which they transcend race and gender and stuff would be pretty awesome. I think that would be very awesome. A cleric who's like, hey, my character is a particular race. This was brought up to me personally with someone contacted me about being racially fluid. I know we're talking about gender now, but saying they're being racially fluid, I think that'd be awesome too. Like, hey, you want to be your character wants to worship a dragon god. Well, guess what? For a short period of time, you become a dragonborn. You know, Kaya says, "Are there male dryads? There should be, or why not? Maybe the males are the treants and the females are the dryads. I don't know. Oh man." Zamara says that would be an interesting reason why wizards wear robes and those who don't are seen as outcasts. Ooh, you're not a true wizard if you don't wear a robe to cover your. It might be unseemly to wear male or female coded clothing if you're a wizard. Maybe. Hmm. Hmm. That'd be strange. Zamara says cultural appropriation is what makes a creature creative in times of intellectual drought. Tongue in cheek. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, yeah. If you're lazy, I think it hurts. If you're creative with it, I think it's okay. If you just admit what you're doing, I think that at least absolves a little bit of it. You know, sometimes I think a cultural people are gatekeepers to cultural appropriation. It's like the whole it's the whole argument over whether Caucasian people should have braids or cornrows or dreadlocks or something. I'm like, get out of here, get out of here with that. Tesla's like, then there's the RBG with her lace collars. Yeah, I have that in the thumbnail too. It's kind of cool. Actually, I like the picture too. It's kind of cool. Yeah. I'm trying to keep up with you guys. Vampanoy. Vampy says many high level red wizards are non binary and shave their heads and wear tattoos. Pronouns are they. Just a joke. Don't quote me on this thing. That's actually kind of a cool thing. I know you're joking. I know you're joking, Vampanoy. It was you guys with the dad jokes, but that would be awesome. Although I still say, personally, I don't like the word they. I think there should be a better pronoun. I feel like there should be a specified pronoun. I think as a culture, language wise, we can come up with better pronouns. That's why I say pronies all the time, because I feel like they is an appropriation of something that's very generic and undefined. And I'm like, no, you're the hero of your own story. I think you should have your own pronouns. But I suppose then you'd have to have a grab bag of a bunch of different pronouns. Side note. Sorry, I the acronym quilt bag. I did a little bit of armchair research into the acronym of quilt bag, and you guys out there let me know if it's offensive or not, because I now am warming up to it, because I when I first heard it I was like, that sounds kind of offensive, uh, but quilt bagged actually sounds kind of cool, because I read that it's essentially like, it sounds like, hey, everybody's got their little pocket in the bag. Anyway, quilt bag stands for is an acronym for queer, questioning, undecided, intersex, lesbian, trans, meaning transgender, transsexual, bisexual, asexual, and or gay or genderqueer. So that's a quilt bag. Anyway, that's a side note for me. Kaya says, like many uniforms, wigs are an emblem of anonymity. If a UK barrister doesn't wear a wig, it's considered an insult to the court. Also, again, wearing the idea of like, as I mentioned yesterday, just kind of, I look at it as three different levels of genderism. So it's what your outer appearance is, like what you wear, your clothing, your fashion, and that can change from region to region in your world. So it's what do you wear outwardly? How do you look? What is your hairstyle like? What is your makeup, if any? Do you have tattoos and piercings? How do you adorn yourself? Do you wear robes or tight fitting clothing? And which types of clothing, dresses, and all that kind of business correspond to which gender. So it's your outward appearance. Then it's biological. Like, what is your gender biologically? Like, what genitalia do you have? How is your body shaped? What kind of does it actually change and shift on your character, or were you born one way and want it to become another way? Which is, I'm going to go to one of the comments from YouTube that was posted the other day. And then lastly, mentally, what is that character's attraction and opinions of other genders? Are they attracted to one gender type, or are they attracted to a particular look rather than a intellectual or emotional category or something like that? So when we talk about gender, it's when I say gender fluid, it's not just someone's moving from one to another, but that you could look at various people physically and visually see them and see one thing. And then if you knew who they were, if they were undressed, you might see something, a second thing. And then if you knew who they were personality wise and their desires, that's a third thing. So you've got these different layers, and it can be a little confusing for people. And I think the confusion makes people afraid. And so, yeah. Yeah, we talked about monster coding. Tesla Ranger says the dryads and other nymphs were known to be fond of dancing, but never came out to do so unless they knew the coast was clear. Their male counterparts were the rustic gods, such as Pan and the satyrs. We didn't talk about Pan and satyrs and nymphs and such, myriads and dryads and sirens, but a lot of them mythologically were very much coded for that. I think that's you know. Wayne says humans are very much prone to their own fantasies. Yeah, that's where a lot of those mythological beings came from us, and so it's going to come from our own. It's going to come from the stories that were passed down from person to person. So, storytellers, things like that. Um, Kylie says, "My good non-binary friend likes they. You get used to it. Yeah, me too. Whatever. Like I said, I'll get used to it. Just think of pronouns as a nickname. People will tell you theirs, and you can always use their name if they feel odd to say it at first. Oh, no, no, no. I'm not trying to buck the system. I don't mind it because that's the norm. I just feel like I feel like I think we could come up with a better honorific. I don't know what the honorific would be, but um, I don't know. That's just me. I I mean, yes, I default to calling people by their name rather than using they because I'm so intrinsic in binary genders that it's hard for me to switch over like that. So I'd rather just use somebody's name. Uh, Lone Wolf says, "Well, some non-binary people use multiple pronouns such as she and they, and there are other pronouns like I'm going to mispronounce this. Is it with a Z like Zay and Zem or I don't know. If you're comfortable with that pronoun, then you get to be the hero. maybe I might have to struggle with that one. Yeah. I'm with you. No, I'm with you guys. Yeah. That's maybe maybe it's the I think it's the content creator in me that if I'm like writing a story and I want to refer to my protagonist in a particular way, I might I feel like I want to be like because this is who they are, right? I'm using the word they and them, right? But this is who they are, and I want to use as fewer words to encompass that person or that group individually. So that's just it's just me. But like I said, I'm not like, oh, I hate it, fold arms, pout, poke out bottom lip. I'm not like that. And Kylie's like, yeah, no judgment. It's a learner. And by the way, some trans people also pull the two gender card. We are truly a wreck of a society. And it's growing pains. It's just growing pains for all of us, I think. Now, when it comes to incorporating these kind of things in games, like for example, let me go to a comment that I actually love here because Zamara did post a long comment in the YouTube the other day. I didn't forget it, but M Crowick, who always posts. I don't get to read M Crowick's comments too often. I think I should. Says I was just thinking the other day that a party could be sent on a deliberate quest for the gender bending belt. Remember the girdle of masculinity and femininity by someone who's trans and doesn't have access to any other way to change physically. And um, it made me think of like that's actually a really good idea. Like, could you imagine in the old days, this was a cursed item, and you put, of course, they had to call it a girdle and whatnot, and you put the big old belt on, and it's cursed, so it changes the gender of your character, and all of us got a big laugh out of it, ha ha, what stupid, but actually kind of cool to go on a quest to find that item or find the MacGuffin. The MacGuffin could be an item, a potion. Maybe if a potion might be temporary, there could be a confluence, a ley line. Maybe there's a powerful wizard or something like that for a character to go on a quest to specifically change their gender or to have had their gender changed to get it changed back or to basically just go somewhere where they want to be the way they want to be. I would love an adventure like that. That's an easy yes for me, I think. Now the question would be, would other player characters want to go along with that? And as a player, I would go along with that because you can always have, if this is the main quest and we're going on a side quest or something, absolutely. And in a fantasy game of being who you'd want to be, and I can't this now I'm going to say something that I cannot speak on. I don't know if someone who feels that they were born in a body that is alien to them would want to role play in a game where I don't where they're like, hey, my character was born or maybe resurrected, or their spirit was put into another body that they don't feel comfortable in. I don't know how well I would feel that way, because I don't know what that would feel like, but whatever. But if someone told me that they wanted to do that, hell yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I don't see why anybody would. It's either that or flaming +5 flaming Avenger Vorpal sword. We could play this this girdle of gender bending all you want. Zamora says, well, to get back on another track, I have an NPC follower of the party who is a bullywog. A situation came up in role playing, and the PCs tried to explain sex to him because he is young. Sorry. Oh no, it's moving a little bit. There we go. Tried to explain sex to him, and then he had to explain to them that bullywogs don't operate that way, and that they have ponds filled with eggs to fertilize. It shapes his mindset as he sees nobody as attractive. Yeah, we're going to explain it to the bullywog, and the bullywog's like, that's not how it works. You guys are nasty. Right? Yeah. We tend to we like to default to our own biology, of course, on many things. So yeah, Tess says girdle of femininity, masculinity is old, or girdle of gender 5e. Hey, yeah. Well, mind you, would it be a cursed item? I don't give that away for free. Why? Like, why would you? I don't know. Lone Wolf says, "Oh yeah, the dreaded girdle. There's an equivalent thing in the old Call of Cthulhu campaigns as well." Yeah, girdle of neutering. Vampanoid says elves can change gender due to Fey ancestry. They trance 4 hours a day. I know that fifth edition basically said, "Oh yeah, by the way, remember Coraline Lotharian? Yeah, all elves are born or created from, I believe it was the dropped blood after being slashed by Grumpsh or something like that, and that's why elves are that way." Tesla's like girdle of neutering. Girdle, instead of a bag of holding, it could be maybe you find a quilt bag. Hmm. Hmm. That's a callback, guys. It's called a callback. Girdle of gender correction. Caution: do not don while cisgender. Ooh. There you go. I love it. I love that. Yeah. Little caution tag on the end of it. Of course, PC's like, rip. The other end of it's like, do not remove under under penalty of law. PC's like, rip it off. It's a girdle of giant strength. Whoa. And then, of course, that PC, after the game is over, like, I actually like the girdle. Can I keep it? I thought you hated it. Nah, that was just in front of all the guys. Mike says, doppelgangers and changelings are a perfect display of why gender and sex has zero effect on ability scores. Does their shape determine their strength? Yeah, like, would you? So, right. So, if what's the spell? Alter self. I believe it's the low level spell Alter Self, where you can change a humanoid character can change their height and weight and sexuality and race by using Alter Self. Does that mean you have to apply, gender modifiers if you become one or the other? Like, no, that'd be ridiculous. Lone Wolf says, as it's too real an experience for me, I'd personally not want to play a transitioning trans character or be in a game where such themes come up in a negative way. Uh, Session zero, right? Session zero. This is the reason why we have X cards and session zero, and what's the other one? Um, Lines and veils and things like that. Like, maybe, and mind you, I know people think session zero comes before one and two, but this is where someone raises their hand and goes, "Hey, DM, this is getting a little personal. Can we not go down this path?" Or the opposite: "Hey, DM, can we do this thing to make this thing happen because I'd like this thing to happen?" And my answer to all of that, the above, would be, yeah, all right, okay. Now, the hard part would be one player wants to delve into that, and another player is like, "I'd rather not because this is escapism for me," where someone else is like, "Hey, this is experimentation for me." So a bit of a deep conversation, but you don't actually have to go to your DM for that. You can actually talk to other people. I know we're tabletop role players, and part of that is being socially awkward about having deep conversations like that, but whatever. Um, Zamara says, I do personally plan on making traps and spells that will polymorph players from their gender or race. Controversial, I know, but as you can tell, I run games that pull people from their comfort. I would be really careful with that, Z. Now I'd play in that game, but those things have disappeared for a reason. Changing people's alignment and their race and their gender and their age and their height and weight and stuff like that. That used to be huge in Gygaxian time, the Gygaxian era. By the way, TSR is making a comeback. Did you guys know the logo, the actual brand TSR is coming back? A lot of people were just like, are flame warring over. It's crazy, but whatever. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Uh, you guys are having a personal conversation. I'm not going to read that comment out. Tesla says, over a century ago, real men wore pimped out dresses up to the age of 5. Yes, I thank you there, Tesla. I actually saw and read that article. Anyway, try sticking this in your period game and see how many of the players think you're making this up. You are so right. As a matter of fact, yes, they did wear pimped out dresses on boys up until age 5. There's artwork and everything about yes. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, the term dress, the article of clothing known as a dress, a long shirted thing, maybe belted and whatnot, was worn by everyone for a very long time. Yeah, Mike. I've heard a lot of people say that it's a lot of. I'm not going to go down that path. I know it's at the end of the show, but yes, I've heard a lot of people say like the TSR team. It sounds like a lot of vapor content, vaporware, I suppose, if you want to do that. Um, yeah. Mike says pink was male until I think the 20th century. Yeah, we tend we it was dressing gowns. Yeah, dressing gowns were often worn by all genders universally. Now, mind you, a lot of that has to do with fashion technology. Like today we have skinny jeans with lycra and spandex in them, which might not have existed back then. Might not have existed, like polyester and all that kind of business. Sure. So I think that might have had a lot to do with it as well. But again, yeah, a lot of fashion and clothing is coded. I I suppose since we are talking about tropes and such, that to end this, maybe we don't want to do we don't want to automatically make the badass woman like a butch. We don't want to make the damsel in distress. We don't have to make the manly man guy, uh, um, appe- that chivalry doesn't need to be reserved for the manly man or something like that. Maybe we can start uh, to blend in some things where to disrupt the expectation. Now, mind you, disrupting expectations, and as this was actually written in TV Tropes, the website was saying that there's a reason for having tropes and they're not all bad. A culture, PCs go to a town, they have a culture. There should be expectations. Every culture has an expectation. Now, flipping that expectation means that we might disrupt what the players expect. They go to town number 2 and everyone's wearing dressing gowns or something, and they're just like, what? I don't get it. But the expectation in that second town where everyone wears this should have a good reason, not just to do it just to do it or force feed it in there, which is I think some people have a problem with the idea of diversity and gender fluidity because it's being forced in rather than being embraced completely. Like, no, this is in the game. There's a reason why it's in the game. We just talked about judges wearing black robes and white wigs to remove any evidence of real world stature, gender, age, status, economics, whatever the case might be, right? And so something like that might very easily be in this world. And so, absolutely, when the PCs go to a place where where gender fluidity is embraced and your PCs are like, I don't get it. Hell, there are plenty of historical reasons why people would accept a thing that in a different period of time they wouldn't. Um, but of course, it's fantasy, so we don't need to rely on real world. We don't need to rely on real worldisms to do it. Lone Wolf says in Victorian Britain they dressed all the kids up in white dresses until about 5 years old, no matter their gender. Pink represented the passion and hot headedness of males. Yep, yep. Absolutely. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Tell a rules lawyer will actualizer and they'll get pissed off at you too, right? Zamara says addition for cultural differences in the way distant past in some cultures people didn't care who you banged unless you refused to have kids. Not having kids was the amoral part. Yes, as a matter of fact, yes, that is very true. Which, in a way, brings up some pretty good story ideas, right? Um, when a marriage was made to combine nations, which was a political thing, the rest of that political agenda was those two bonded together were to have kids, and the two bonded together, people, the families or the nobles or the politicians, not caring what their sexuality is, are like, we don't care what your sexuality is. You guys are going to have to figure out how you're going to have some kids. And so, whether it's through political adoption, whether it's through, what, we're just going to have to suck it up, and our significant others are going to have to kind of be involved in this in this uh, polyamory maybe, or something, to produce offspring, if that's the way the culture goes. Sure. Yeah, Ebenezer Scrooge wore a dressing gown in A Christmas Carol. I don't wear dressing gowns anymore, but I do have a propensity for for uh, geeky sleepwear, so it's kind of cool. Kind of cool. Kyla says, "Oh my God, Zula from Conan the Destroyer. Forgot to mention her. What a woman and such strength." Oh yeah, yep, Zula from Conan the Destroyer. We forgot about that. Ne- Completely forgot about that. Oh, what? I gotta get out of here. Tesla Ranger says the Pink Panther is a girl. If he was a boy, he'd be the Blue Panther, the family circus. True, maybe, but the Pink Panther. I love those old Pink Panther things. Yeah, they never heard the Pink Panther speak. Yeah, I love those old cartoons. Not yes, I know there's the Pink Panther the detective, but I love the cartoons, man. They were pretty ridiculous. I love them. Anyway, guys, yeah, we didn't talk too much about tropes. Tomorrow is World Building Wednesday, which is going to be kind of fun. I really appreciate you guys embracing the fact that you allow me to embrace these hard hitting, somewhat controversial elements. I do this every once in a while. Um, Thanks, Z. Yeah, have a wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for hosting. No problem at all. I'm not. I'll never be afraid to talk about controversial subjects. But what I will do is try to have an open conversation. I understand there are people out there who will never ever yeah, ride eternal, shiny and chrome. Absolutely. You guys have a great one. Thank you very much for even participating. Some of you might. I mean, I don't mind if some of you are like, "Hey, I'm not going to be involved in this conversation at all." Your prerogative. No big deal. No problem. We'll get back to the usual. But like once or twice a year, I always try to find something. Like remember. I don't know if you guys remember, but I know Dead Man Tesla. They remember. I did 2 weeks on slavery and racism and whatnot. So yeah, Kyler's like to the Discord. Yeah. But to to be fair, to be fair, um, I'm I need to I put my money where my mouth is. I'm a proponent of having everybody experience role playing games, no matter who you are. And if that means that some people are going to be offended by a thumbnail or a title of a video that they haven't watched, or they refuse to even participate in a conversation, then I could care less about those comments. I would rather people be involved and to express their true selves for good or bad. For bad because then you find out who the assholes are, and for good because then I get to learn more things. Then hell yeah. Lone Wolf's like, great stuff, DBJs really shouldn't be a controversial topic, but we've still got a long way to go. Exactly. It shouldn't be. And to be honest, I've got a shit ton to learn. I do. Like I have to when in my mind when I make up like NPCs and characters and things like that, do I have to stop and go, whoa, wait a minute, DBJ? Like a lot of them are just like you, just divided up in little chunks, and it's like, no, maybe we should do something else. Yep, yep, yeah. Listen, like I mentioned before, my discomfort does not trump your you being actualized, right? None of that. And when I say my discomfort, I'm not discomfort. I'm not uncomfortable now, but when I was younger, hell yeah, I was. I was an asshole, but whatever. So you live and learn. You look at that person, you look at that person 5 minutes ago, and you're like, I don't need to be that person anymore. And you put them away. You put them in a closet. You know what I mean? Mike says I have a T that says when everybody plays, everybody wins. Exactly. Exactly. And I don't know. I still don't understand how you could defend not wanting other people you don't have a relationship with or don't know and don't want them to experience an imaginative game. It's just weird. It's like not liking someone because they're having dreams you're not having. Right? So I just find that's very strange. So, guys, anyway, we do have a Discord. You can absolutely post. Unlike Twitch and unlike Twitch and YouTube, you can post pictures and articles and links and all that kind of stuff. You can keep the conversation going without me. And I just appreciate all of you being kind and brilliant and gentle. I'm sure it's going to get some flack by the end of the week. It'll show up on people's feeds and they'll go, "Who the hell is this dude?" That's another reason why the channel's. Wayne mentioned the fact that the channel should be 10 times bigger, but this is another reason why it isn't. So I don't mind that really. I'm not really in it for like the big things, but yeah, um, I just prefer a safe, comfortable, creative space. And if I can be part of that just a little bit, then that's cool. BBJ, you've created a loving, high-powered, creative space that lets this happen. Much love to all. Much love to you guys. I got to get out of here, but you guys, absolutely, we're going to continue this conversation tomorrow. Tomorrow is World Building Wednesday. Of course, we got Third Pillar of Exploration Thursday and Future Friday. Dead Man, Tesla, you guys already know. Future Friday, we're going to talk about transhumanism and cortical stacks and morphs and changing sexuality in the future and making that easier and stuff like that. So yeah, yeah, I'm like Rorschach. Yeah, Mike says you're like Rorschach, not in it for the ink. Nope, not at all, not at all. Mm, oh man. Tesla says, "Oh, I have 2 links to 2 YouTube call-in shows for more info that I'll post in the Discord: the Transatlantic Show and Secular Sexuality." Hmm. I'm gonna have to check that out myself. And I'm gonna put that link. I'm gonna put that comment back up again. But yeah, tomorrow's Eclipse Phase Day. Yeah. I really want to do a more dedicated like Eclipse Phase and Altered Carbon, like more with the mechanics of the game. But it's so deep. An hour isn't enough. It's basically what I'm just saying. But yeah, I really should. I really should. I know Dead Man's like, damn it, do it. But I don't have time for it. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. I got to get out of here. I will see you all tomorrow for World Building Wednesday. Guys, have a great one.